Modern cosmology describes a physical universe composed entirely of cold, random, expanding space. When we look up at the night sky, we are trained to see a massive vacuum, completely indifferent to human existence. The 11th century Persian philosopher Nasser Khosrow posited that the universe functions as a physical mirror, a structure specifically engineered to trigger human spiritual awakening. We can visualize his framework in this animated diagram. Notice how a single origin point expands outward along the x, y, and z axes to form the 6 faces of a cube. To Khosrow, these 6 spatial directions strictly frame all physical reality. Accepting these physical directions as the absolute limit of reality traps us inside a fragmented box. We spend our lives navigating spatial coordinates without ever understanding why the space was constructed in the first place. Khosrow viewed the 6 days of creation not as literal time, but as a blueprint for human history. Just as 6 directions define the limits of a physical object, he argued that 6 distinct spiritual eras define the human experience, each led by a specific law-giving prophet. Within those 6 unfolding panels, we see cascading wave patterns. These represent what Khosrow identified as the 6 powers of nature: movement, rest, matter, form, time, and space. These forces drive human progress forward. Notice how those 6 panels dissolve and collapse inward to a single glowing center point. Khosrow identified this convergence as the 7th stage, or the Qaim. It unites the fragmented eras into one cohesive truth. The universe's rigid physical limits, the days, the years, the spatial directions, were explicitly designed as necessary scaffolding. They apply continuous friction to human consciousness, forcing it to develop, adapt, and ultimately evolve toward that unified 7th stage. A century later, the poet Rumi took Khosrow's dense, geometric cosmology and translated it into accessible mysticism. He stripped away the heavy mathematical proofs to focus entirely on the emotional human experience of living inside this structure. Rumi observed that humans constantly obsess over physical disruptions. He compared our daily reality to turbulent ocean foam. The foam is loud and highly visible, but it rests entirely on top of a deep, silent ocean of spiritual reality, which eventually smooths out into a perfect reflection. In this philosophical tradition, the human body acts as a miniature biological replica of the entire universe's architecture. The same structural rules that govern the orbit of planets and the progression of human history are replicated in your anatomy and your mind. If you are finding value in this exploration of philosophy and meaning, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Mystical poetry proves that an abstract cosmic architecture is ultimately meant to be experienced as a deeply personal awakening. The geometry is simply the language the universe uses to speak directly to the individual mind. We find this exact mathematical mirroring in Western philosophy. Plato's theory of forms argued that every physical object we touch or measure is a flawed shadow cast by a perfect, eternal spiritual reality. Jumping ahead to the 18th century, Immanuel Kant asserted that time and space are not external physical realities at all. Instead, they are the built-in operating system of the human mind, the necessary psychological filters we use to process an otherwise incomprehensible existence. This animated diagram provides a side-by-side comparison of Khosrow's 6-sided geometric matrix alongside Taoism's 5-pointed circular cycle of elements. Both systems feature distinct, rigid natural forces continuously orbiting a central, unifying focal point. Across entirely different cultures, continents, and centuries, humans display an inescapable instinct. We repeatedly attempt to organize the overwhelming chaos of nature into strict numerical systems and definitive spatial directions. Humanity universally suspects the physical world is not a random accident of chemistry. It reads like a mathematically coded map, designed specifically to point the human mind toward a higher reality. We no longer rely on medieval geometry to chart the solar system. but Khosrow's psychological diagnosis of the human condition remains perfectly accurate today. We are currently drowning in the modern equivalents of those 6 directions. We navigate an endless grid of information overload, our attention is fractured by constant notifications, and we are relentlessly ground down by the ticking of the clock. We often treat these dimensions as exhaustive traps. In reality, they function as the specific constraints required for personal growth. The constant anxiety defining modern life is simply the symptom of obsessing over the fragmented pieces of the 6 while completely ignoring the unifying purpose of the 7th. Khosrow's 7th, the Qayyam, represents a mental shift. It describes the moment a person steps back from external chaos to discover a unifying internal meaning. The strict boundaries of your life, your physical limitations, your finite time, your spatial constraints, are precisely the tools required to forge your consciousness. Without that friction, growth is impossible. True understanding requires abandoning the literal, apparent meaning of the events in your life. You have to look past the surface-level facts to seek their underlying structural purpose. You are not a solitary observer separated from a cold, expanding vacuum. The universe was built with exact physical parameters to act as an incubator for human consciousness. Look at the night sky. In Khosrow's architecture, this vast expanse is an ancient mirror reflecting the hidden order of our own consciousness.